Good evening, this is Cagney, airspace above your home, to the east of Gatwick Airport, including the north and the south. Now, if you could keep your microphones turned off during this first session, and if you don't want your personal data to be captured, please change your name because it is being recorded, this session. Take a note of any slides you'd like to go back to or any questions from the slides and the presentation I'm going to give during this first half of this meeting. When we come to question and answers, please, no question is a silly question, and do ask them, and we can go back over things. So I'm going to share my screen now. I hope you can all see that. Cagney, we are a voluntary umbrella aviation community and environment group for Sussex, Surrey and Kent, concerned predominantly with Gatwick Airport. We continue to successfully oppose a new runway at Gatwick, but we need your help. So you can donate via our website, cagney.org. The Secretary of State announced the approval of the new runway at Gatwick Airport, but it doesn't mean it's a done deal. The legal team that we have had since 2018 continues to fight to oppose this runway and are currently looking at serving a letter of intent for a judicial review. You have funded this team to date, so please do continue to donate to this team, because they actually made the Planning Inspectorate refuse this application for a new runway. And there are many, many holes in the Gatwick application. We work internationally with other NGOs and aviation concerned groups. We have our own environment campaign to educate the flyer about the damage flying does to the planet. And we are a recognised member of Friends of the Earth Climate Action Group. We are lobbyists providing information to elected members, and we sit on relevant groups at Gatwick Airport and the government. So here is an overview of airspace at Gatwick. You will not see this as flown. You don't have arrivals and departures operating to the west together or the east together. But today we're going to focus to the east. This area, here's Gatwick Airport here. Now these orange corridors are noise preferential routes. These are historically where departure have flown. So here we have Route 3 that takes off to the east, heads north, South Goldstone and towards Red Hill Margate. Here we have Route 6 and takes off towards Crowhurst. Route 5, Dorman's Land and towards Mark Beach. And here Route 2 going all the way down to Lewes. So east, north and south. These 8, 10, 12 and 14 nautical miles are joins of arrivals. Arrivals come up from south, the holding stacks, and join at 8, 10, 12, or straight in at 14 nautical miles. You can just see here a red arrival plane coming up to join the final approach called the Instrument Landing System, the ILS. Let's start with departures, easterly operations. Approximately 30% of departures fly to the east, taking off into the wind. The orange corridors, as I showed, are noise preferential routes, NPR. Each route has a vectoring height, that is a height where the planes can turn off that corridor. Some are 3,000 feet and some are 4,000 feet. Departures have traditionally flown inside those orange corridors using ground-based beacons. Noise preferential routes, NPRs, are 3 kilometres wide. In 2014, it was ruled that departures should become concentrated. Performance-based navigation was introduced on all departure routes. So departure routes were put down the centre line of those noise preferential routes, leaving 1.5 kilometres either side of that noise preferential route. Routes used to have names: Bognor, Sam. Today we see them as numbers. Departure routes fly the same path from the airport until they vector. Vector is turning, north or south. Some departure areas also suffer arrivals. Departure routes to the east generally can climb. That's get higher. Apart from Route 2, that's held down by other air traffic. So to recap, the orange corridors are now shown here in blue, and you can see the vectoring height: 3,000 feet, 3,000 feet, 3,000 feet, and 4,000 feet. That arrow doesn't mean to say that is where that 3,000 feet is. If planes climb higher, quicker, it could be here. If they don't, and it's slower climb, it could be here. So north of Gatwick, south of Gatwick, east of Gatwick for departure routes. So again, to recap, Route 3 departs to the east and turns northwest. It then drops down over the west side of the country, the west side of Gatwick airspace. In the west, there is restricted climb. Departures and arrivals, there is a restriction. Due to changes made at City Airport, which sits to the east, arrivals were moved to the west side. So they come down the west side of the UK if they're not coming up from the south, from the sea area, from French airspace. The holding stacks are to the south of Gatwick. And of course, above us is Heathrow's traffic. Route 4 did not conform. Now, this is the route that takes off to the west and it turns north and then east. It did not conform to the introduction of concentration down the centre line of the noise preferential route in 2014. It flew outside of that noise preferential route. It is currently going through a Civil Aviation Authority CAP 1616 consultation process. There are 7 stages of that consultation process. It is due to go to the public consultation, stage 3, early next year, if the additional mapping that has just been provided by Gatwick Airport to the CAA, Civil Aviation Authority, in October. Route 4 takes off to the west, it turns north, northeast, and it dips down over the east side. This is because it avoids Hawley. So here, the departure vectoring, turning. So you can see Route 3, here's Gatwick, there's Hawley, and then here we have Route 5, Route 6, and Route 2 down towards the coast. So over here, these departure routes can generally climb. Route 3 gets restricted because of the Heathrow traffic here. And then we have Route 2 that gets restricted because the holding stacks are down here as well. And you have arriving traffic coming up. So to recap, we have Gatwick here. The orange corridors are noise preferential routes. This line is the final approach, instrument landing system. So this plane coming up here in red is probably going to join at 12 nautical miles. and then glide in to Gatwick. These little circles you can see with numbers in, these are noise monitors. They're picking up the aircraft noise as it approaches, as it goes over. And you'll see there's a number of noise monitors around Gatwick Airport. So let's move on to arrivals. Arrivals routes travel within a swathe, an area where arrivals can fly to join the final approach, the instrument landing system, the ILS. Arrivals join at 8 nautical miles, 10, 12, and then straight in at 14. Arrivals at night join at minimum join of 10 nautical miles. Aircraft on the ILS, the instrument landing system, the final approach, should be quieter as planes have less power on and less distance to go. That's distance till the wheels touch the runway. Some areas to the east received approximately 70% of the arrivals going into Gatwick Airport. Holding stacks are to the south of Gatwick, called Timber and Willow, and the lowest hold is 7,000 feet. There are no restrictions on planes how they descend. That means how quickly they come down to a lower height. As I mentioned, changes to City Airport airspace in 2014 moved arrivals from the east to the west side of the country. It comes to the holding stacks, and then they go up to the final approach to join and go into Gatwick Airport. CDA, continuous descent approach, reduces noise by keeping planes higher before they descend. But this is further out from the airport, approximately 14 nautical miles. That's not in a straight line, that is through the swathe. Wheels down early increases noise by 5 decibels. This is a known practice. There have been a number of research now, and it's proven, and the CAA agree it increases noise by 5 decibels, but there is nothing mandatory to stop pilots from doing this. There is no safety aspects for them not to do it. So we continue to lobby to have this mandatory that they should stop doing this. Airbus, the engines produce a whale noise, which has been known about internationally since 2018. And CAGNY continues to lobby to have these engines retrofitted to stop this noise. So to recap on arrivals, here we have the holding stacks. And you can see this aircraft is coming up. Oh, apologies. Coming up to join the final approach and go into Gatwick Airport. But they will join at 8, 10, 12 and straight in 14 nautical miles. They don't join in one line, but it's a very good example of concentrated arrivals. These holding stacks will disappear with modernisation of airspace, and there may be one further out to sea. And so you will have 3 to 4 concentrated routes like this coming up or coming across, or coming up to join the final approach. So you won't have the swathe. So this is an arrival swathe. These are holding stacks in operation. So you can see at the moment, there are a lot of lines, lots of arrivals, all heading towards that final approach, that instrument landing system. These will become concentrated routes, 3 or 4 concentrated routes. The fourth route will generally be straight in. And again, the holding stacks in operation, the arrival swathe. Under there is Tunbridge, East Grinstead. Down here is Uckfield, Robertsbridge over here. And you can see here in the west, this departure route, Route 4, and how it dips down over the east and avoids Hawley. This is Edenbridge under here. So go-arounds. These affect residents closer to the runway. Go-arounds are a safety procedure performed by an arriving aircraft on final approach. They abort the landing and climb away, applying takeoff power, and so create a lot of noise. It's a standard procedure, and we believe there will be more go-arounds with the new runway because arrivals will only come to one main runway. The new runway will not take arrivals. And here's some of the reasons why they have go-arounds. Unstable approach, that's to do with the pilot and having too much speed on, not ready to touch down. Departure slow to roll, that means the departure hasn't taken off as it should from the runway before an arriving aircraft can land. Runway occupied, that can mean an arriving aircraft has landed, but the pilot doesn't know the airport or the runway system, and so it has to be guided off to appear to the terminals. So there's a delay. Or it can mean that there is a vehicle on the runway because 2 to 4 safety checks have to be made during the day of the runway. Weather is often an issue. Technical reasons, wildlife, can be wildlife on the runway, wildlife in the air. So night flights, this is one of the biggest complaints that CAGNY receives, and CAGNY continues to lobby for a ban on night flights. So the summer schedule allows for 11,200 flights. There are no restrictions on the timing or whether they are arrivals or departures. The winter schedule allows for 3,250 flights. There are no restrictions on timing or whether they are arrivals or departures. Night flights are from 11:30 in the evening till 6:30 a.m. Government dispensations allow for more flights. So if air traffic control goes on strike, if there's issues in airspace or at other airports, the government will allow extra flights at night. Unused winter flight numbers can be carried over into the summer schedule. So that's a percentage. Because there aren't as many flights during the winter months because Gatwick is quieter. Aviation are seeking to replace the number of flights with quotas to enable them to increase the number of night flights if noise is reduced. CAGNY strongly opposes this because it will increase the number of flights. So you still have the light pollution, and with more frequency comes more noise and more disturbance. Unfortunately, the airlines lobby that they need the economic benefits of night flights. And currently, the government are conducting research into the health impacts of night flights, but also the economic benefits of night flights. We expect them to reconsult in 3 years' time. So we move on to the future. Airspace change, phases. Future Airspace Strategy Implementation South. A government and international initiative. It is to increase growth, efficiency, resilience, and save fuel. You often see save fuel as save CO2, carbon. Expect the public consultation on Gatwick Airport in the second quarter of 2026. The poor maps to date have prevented informed feedback from the chosen stakeholders. There is the Civil Aviation Authority consultation process called CAP 1616. There are 7 stages of this. Gatwick is currently at stage 3. So Gatwick is going to handle its airspace change in 2 sections. The first section will be to the south of Gatwick Airport. This has been identified as the area for growth. The second part will be to the north of Gatwick, to integrate with Heathrow's plans. This may be delayed further now because of the talk of a new runway at Heathrow. What will be new? Well, concentrated arrivals routes, as I've previously mentioned. Potential for new routes over new areas, especially to the south. No compensation for anyone. The Department for Transport have advised ministers it would be far too expensive to compensate homeowners for loss of house value. They have said that residents will have to swallow the cost burden because of the benefits to aviation from the FASIS process. Continuous climb operations, CCO, on departures. This is planes climbing quicker so that they can reduce the noise. But it also means that they could vector, turn over new areas quicker as well, to take a more direct route to their destination. Time separation arrivals. This narrows down the time between arrivals landing. So to go back to the consultation process of CAA CAP 1616, the 7 stages of the consultation process. As you can see, these are maps that are blacked out with lots of green lines. These are arrival options, these are departure options, and chosen stakeholders were asked to make informed feedback. I hope you agree it's near impossible to do that. So we have detailed that is a flawed process. And we've complained to MPs, we've complained to the Civil Aviation Authority, and we've complained to Gatwick Airport. But the CAA have continued to approve and push Gatwick forward through the consultation process. Again here, it's another example of a map. The yellow is a heat map of all the arrivals. Blue, potential arrival routes. So what airspace will be changed? Well, the blue is airspace below 7,000 feet. Please remember that up to 4,000 feet, noise is the #1 priority. Between 4,000 feet and 7,000 feet, it is noise stroke saving CO2 carbon. So here the blue is showing the airspace to the south of Gatwick Airport. The red is showing the airspace above 7,000 feet. Above 7,000 feet, noise is not a consideration because you are not affected by noise. So this government initiative, FASI South and FASI North. Aviation initiatives supported by governments. If we accept that airspace needs to be modernised, this is because aircraft now operate on a very similar to sat-nav in cars. Gone are the ground-based beacons that aircraft used to fly from to. So what are the benefits for communities from this modernisation of airspace? Well, the answer is it seems to be an increase in flight numbers because it is all about growth. More concentration. The holding stacks will go, but it frees up more extra airspace for more routes. As far as we can see, FASs will increase noise and emissions due to the desire for growth from the main runway and the new runway. FASs was not allowed to be considered during the new runway planning process. This is because Gatwick says it does not require the modernisation of airspace. We disagree. We believe the complexity of the airspace and them seeking to add 101,000 extra flights a year means that they desperately need the modernisation of airspace, as does air traffic control. When will it happen? It keeps being delayed, but we expect by 2029, 2030, that this process will have been implemented. Who can you turn to with concerns? Your local Member of Parliament. Have them write asking questions of the Secretary of State for Transport about this process and the Aviation Minister. So who is in charge? ACOG. ACOG has been heading up this process, liaising with the sponsors, the airports. ACOG has been headed by the ex-Civil Aviation Authority personnel that introduced and approved concentrated departure routes at Gatwick in 2014. UCAD's UK Airspace Design System has been approved by this government, and we see it as a new tier of bureaucracy to push through airspace change. They are going to take all the data from Gatwick Airport from the FAS's CAP 1616 consultation process to date, and they will decide on the airspace and how it will be changed, how it will be implemented to push it through and speed it up and to make sure it happens. Who is the Secretary of State for Transport? It is the Right Honourable Heidi Alexandra. The Aviation Minister has just changed from Mike Kane to Keir Mather MP. Rob Bishton, aviation through and through, is the CEO of the Civil Aviation Authority, the body that sets CAP 1616 consultation process. And we have a consultation out currently, which ends in December, of them seeking to weaken the restrictions on requirements of this consultation process. And then they approve the airspace change. Each stage, the 7 stages. So what will a new runway mean to you? Well, it will mean 101,000 extra flights. So that's going from 285,000 a year to 386,000 flights a year. To date, CAGNY has had a legal team since 2018, since Gatwick launched its master plan of a 3-runway airport. We were joined by NGOs and environmental bodies, charities, in seeking to oppose Gatwick. We've been delighted to have a strong legal team and a team of experts going through the hearings of the second runway, the development consent order planning. That is all down to you donating to CAGNY. Without your donations, we would not have been able to hold Gatwick to task. We would not have convinced the Planning Inspectorate to refuse this application. Sadly, the Secretary of State for Transport has approved this new runway with no caveats. We now know the holes within the approval, and our team is currently putting together a letter of intent to serve a judicial review. but we need your funding. We need your support to do that. A judicial review is not cheap, but you have raised so much money to date and you have funded this team so much to date. Please don't let us stop now. We believe we can turn this around. So we have a crowd justice direct donation line, which goes directly to Lead A, our solicitors. Or if you don't like those sites, you can donate via our website, www.cagney.org, and find our PayPal account, find our address, and our bank details. This enables us to continue our work on your behalf, the planet's behalf. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. We will go to the questions and answer session, and I will not be recording that session. So please show yourself if you wish, and do ask questions via the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, please unmute and ask them directly. Now let me stop sharing and stop recording.